Very nice opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
So the fire training, I knew that one. I did not know there was earthquake training there also, which we were on the Pacific and we're on that phone line, that sort of thing. So.
Good for everybody. That looks lovely. Because this train was made in 1965.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What part of the East Coast do you
We are in Kimore.
We got dinner.
Okay, no worries. I'll see you there, Janet.
Thank you, Wes.
I don't think it is, but I don't.
Hey, folks. Oh, hey. And they are also building a brand new bridge. Now, I am from Winnipeg, so I can't tell you if they're getting rid of this bridge or if they're just adding to it, but anybody from Vancouver might want to...
I'm pretty sure that they are just adding to it.
Just adding to it, okay, so just making sure. Now, we are headed out of officially Vancouver, New Westminster, and we're headed into Surrey, which is Canada's largest suburb. About 1 million people live here. Yeah.
We should tell them to say, I think this is my school.
I think so.
the other side of Fort Walker?
I don't know. I don't.
And then you lift it up by one. You see these gears? Gear teeth?
And it goes real good, yes. Just fine.
You're cylindrical cloud. Curling.
Amazing, eh?
I think we are.
That's always the thing too. You get it like going on the back.
Real. And everything goes dark.
I get it going that way. Sandbar is all like, so it's built sort of like a little teeny thing. So this one, it looks like sand, doesn't it?
What's a sandbar?
No, they
So it's not really just random. Thematic.
they have crews that go out with us on trains.
This run. From over here.
No, they
So it's not really just random. Thematic.
they have crews that go out with us on trains.
Usually you wanted to do this run. From over here.
Real. And everything goes dark.
I get it going that way.
This run. From over here. Where's the cable car thing?
Well, I need to go walk.
There's right at the end of
Like right before Toronto's a 5-hour time warp, so if you're
Just slide through it.
It's like it's a lot of fun. It's your sports. Skiing.
Waiting for you. Mesdames et messieurs, Jeanette, Adina, dans l'activité B avec Marty, si vous avez
system's pretty.
So if they're offering lunch, whatever, that's got to take it. Hola!
But they double up
The other lady, really.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah. But then at the end of the day, she's.
That doesn't always work. Ladies,
Yes. I'm looking forward to this. Ay,
All right. We got a ham and we got smoked salmon.
No, right. New Year's Eve isn't a bank holiday. New Year's Day is a bank. Of course, yeah, on Sunday, yes, you get Sunday, Monday. Yes.
It looks delicious. Well,
Gary.
keep it down, but you should say, I mean, not just because I might not have just chicken.
All right. Thank you.
so we're just about to get that nice view of the train coming up right away. Boss, right now we're just going through this nice view right here.
Basically, it's chicken pie. Yep. That's just since you know the sandwich, the bread.
miles outside of Edinburgh. And right after Edinburgh, we'll be going over the Canada River Bridge. But yeah, tonight, we'll see a lot of chippers going on there. Big cracks here heading into the water. So that's the Canada River coming up.
I know, yeah, very, very far away.
Believe it or not, folks, this is a resort town. Just north of town here, there is a...
She reads all Trump's.
Yeah.
She loves reading. So,
This is good right here.
Here?
Either side. Which side do you want to be on? You want to sit on the sunny side?
Pardon me? I'm sure it's owned at one point. Now, most of the tracks and right around the golf course.
A little curve there for us.
It's a different sort of farming around here already. It's just amazing how it changes, you know.
Yeah,
And I
and
see
then-
fences.
Complete different change like that. You get into the Canadian Shield. So you go from the prairies to the Canadian Shield, like eight.
And the first time for years was
Every time I think about Georgetown,
There's mountains right behind. And there'll be like 10 to 15
This
Yeah, you'll see it right by there. Now, look, there's going to be a break in. There, you can see the whole thing.
Yep.
So, am I rehired?
I don't know really.
Yeah, okay, I got a lot of ands there. Okay.
Well, it depends on your beer.
Another thing, I'm going to partake myself a little bit. If the boss comes, you don't know whose it is, okay? That's what we're thinking, okay? And what about the head? Now, the head's a little tough when I eat, or a little bit earlier. That is a new one. That was maybe.
Is that the river? Is that the river where the Coca-Cola bar?
Baby, he said.
well, this is it.
We have trouble cars in there.
Just backed into that train.
It's a long way back. Yeah, man,
Big
he's
limo.
not realising that's us.
It does look like some official sat next.
It really does look as though there's somebody there. Oh my
So that
God.
rumour you were spreading us about how long we were staying.
She getting on? Can you see?
Oh.
It's right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Never had a son in this.
Make it a popular tourist destination for sport fishing and hunting, as well as offering fly-in and drive-in resorts. The area has
Hãy subscribe cho kênh Ghiền Mì Gõ để không bỏ lỡ
Was it lightning or something? Or?
No, I mean the movie, but it's skyward.
How? The movie just came. Yeah, but the movie just is not even out.
Is it
yet.
released? Oh no.
Thank you. It's right next to Montreal. Everybody, what do you got?
Again, you and all your belongings will come off the train to go through the U.S. Customs inspection once we get stopped at Niagara Falls, U.S., which will be in just a couple moments here.
Oh, I can't.
Why? I think you can go. You can go. Her?
For CAA color.
Right.
見た方がいいよ。アメリカとカナダの国境が。アメリカとカナダの国境が。旗で。道路のところに出てる。
Ladies and gentlemen, next station stop is Rochester. Rochester's next station stop ET.
Maybe it's just tired.
Poughkeepsie. Poughkeepsie, exit to the rear coach for Poughkeepsie.
You haven't got enough of it. I just want to make sure. I'd rather use the other.
Central Track 1, Express Train Grand Central Track 1, stopping at Ossining, Tarrytown, Yonkers, Harlem.
Good luck.